The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it's Monday in a Riv.
It was a slow weekend. You know that?
Yeah, well, they're gearing up for the campaigns very shortly.
Well, I know. All weekend I've been reaching out to candidates to come onto the show. Yeah. And everyone's like, I'll get back to you. August is here. Guess what?
Well,
that means we've got 12 shows and there's 18 candidates. So somebody's going to get left out. Plus, we've got 3 candidates for mayor. So it's going to be an interesting scenario, that's for sure.
Well, you know, this again shows that they're not really as interested as they should be, and at least in my opinion, of getting their message out, especially the newer candidates. Obviously, you don't want to do it too early, and we're trying to get it in, and we'd like to have some people on more than once, especially the newer ones who had, you know, who may want a little bit more exposure and need a little bit more exposure. And we see how the audience responds to them and who they want to see a second. But if they don't, if I'll get back to you, well, guess what? Then, you know, they may be shut out. They may not be able to get on, and shame on them if they're running for office and don't want to avail themselves of an opportunity to do more than get a soundbite.
I hear you. You know, it's just a little crazy.
It is.
But again, you know, you've got, you know, the school committee, there's not even a race there. And the city council, as you know, we barely have enough for a primary. I don't even know if we're going to have a primary.
Yeah.
And that would have given those people more time to reach out to the voters.
Well, absolutely. And in the school committee, I mean, it's not the race that's the concern. It's what's going to happen after the race.
Right.
Because, you know, chances are with the field, the way it looks, and obviously they don't even have a field per se, the incumbent Hetzler will probably get reelected. And now comes the dawn, as they say. What's going to happen? Now he's going to, they've already gone on record with the back and forth. I guess Joe Macy said, well, you know, we can't, and justifiably, you can't stop him from pulling papers and running. It's his right. However, the charter does say he can't take office, so they're going to not let him take office. They're going to make him choose between his livelihood, and I think he went on record as saying, of course, he's going to choose his livelihood.
Right.
So if he does that, now we're going to have a big mess because they're going to try to block him from office, and then he's going to, who knows, is he going to litigate? Is he going to say, okay? And, you know, again, it's kind of like the charter. You could see this on the horizon.
Yeah,
we got
exactly.
this massive disaster on the horizon, and nobody makes any preparations. I mean, if I was him, and that's my own personal thing, after I got reelected and it was an issue in the first election, I would have litigated that thing right out of the gate to find out exactly where I stood. And as you know, because we went through that.
And the judge said it. He said very clearly, this should have been done before the election. Before the election.
Yeah, and we really had no choice because, let's face it, the recall kind of was like, okay, we didn't plan this a year in advance. Groundswell of support for a recall took place. We had a meeting. We put it together, and we started it. And we were more interested in trying to get a recall, and since nobody had ever been successful, it was hard enough to, you know, why are we going to litigate if we don't even win a recall? So we were in a kind of a catch-22, but this was not the same scenario. He knew after his election, they gave him fundamentally a waiver, a special dispensation. He knew that he was going to face this if he wanted to run for re-election, but he chose to do it this way. So, you know, even though, unfortunately, he may lose and he may have to appeal this, cause himself more problems on constitutional grounds, I hope he wins because I think it's a disgrace. The charter's a disgrace. I think it's a disgrace that any segment of the population is precluded from running for office. because they have to make a choice of their livelihood or serving their city.
Well,
And it's just wrong.
What's very interesting is so far, this charter has been challenged in court once, and the charter lost. Under Hetzler, it's probably going to be challenged again, and they may lose. I mean, what do we have to do? Get the whole charter stricken down one article at a time?
Well, I think that after this scenario with Hetzler, I think there might be enough public opinion, and it's just my, obviously, that, and I will participate. I think there might be enough public opinion to get an initiative petition to throw the charter out and redo this.
That's 15,000 signatures we need.
And I think we could get it, because I think there will be enough people who have now had it up to their ears with charter fights and people, you know, he said, she said, and this is what it means, and you know, I think there were enough people after the charter was approved that now have finally come to the realization that that's not what they voted for. We voted for a charter revision. We didn't vote to get an outside guy to plagiarize, other charters and put together this cut and paste charter that's vague, ambiguous, and frankly discriminatory in many areas. So I truly believe that this might be the catalyst, just like the $8 million deficit in the budget and the purple bags were with Flanagan. This may be the catalyst for the people of Fall River to get together again and create a petition to throw this damn thing out, and let's do it the right way. And I can tell you what, if I'm participating, I will ensure that the new charter will be done by Fall River people, and the only time we'll have any consultation is legal consultation to ensure that the wording is clear and that it is legal, and there will be a mechanism in there to address unforeseen issues within the charter. And you know, I think this whole process showed how badly government can screw up anything you give them.
Anything. But you know, the worst part about it was there were Fall River people on that charter commission.
I know, and shame on all of them except for Dan Robillard.
Yeah, exactly.
Who objected to hiring a consultant, who objected to virtually everything in the charter, and who actually filed a minority opinion. And you know, kudos to him. He truly was the voice of the people, and in my opinion, the only voice of the will of the people.
The sad part about it is the people of Fall River were so stupid. Yes, I'm saying this. You were so stupid, you didn't even read the charter. You didn't even read what it said, because had you read it, you would have said the same thing that all of us said. This is not good. This is not good for Fall River. But no, you wanted a new charter so bad because Mike Mioza said, we need a new charter. Because Chris Bartley said, we need a new charter.
And they took people at their word, and that's one thing about it. And that's one of the problems with the voting public. This isn't, longer have elections like they did 100 years ago, where there was no media, where people read the paper and actually had to listen to people give speeches, and you know, the Lincoln Douglas debates and all these other things. And they actually paid attention a little bit. But today it's marketing. They get a slick commercial, they hit some hot button issues, and they take somebody's word for it, and fake news is accepted as real news because people don't do research. And as you said, you look at the charter, nobody read it. No matter what we said, nobody cared. Mike Mioza, who was a city councilor and liked, they said, oh, well, Mike says it's okay. Well, Mike screwed up. You know, and I have nothing against Mike, but categorically, that was one of the biggest screw-ups I've ever seen in this city's history. That charter was a disaster from the time they hired that consultant, and the only person that was paying attention in that process was Dan Robillard. And shame on the rest of those charter commissioners who participated in that fiasco, because they were Fall River residents and they did not listen to the will of the people, because the question that we voted on was not for a complete overhaul of the charter and a new charter. It was for a charter revision.
Exactly.
And an update. So, you know, let's hope they learned. You know, they stuck their hand on the stove and burnt their entire arm off with this one. So let's hope that, and I truly believe that after this, I believe that we will have support to start an initiative petition to throw this thing exactly where it belongs in the
trash.
circular file.
Yep.
And start all over again.
Hey, and maybe at the same time we can get the petitions together to repeal the CPA.
Exactly. That's another big issue. More taxes, but you know, it's amazing how we see government continue to perpetuate it, and people don't pay attention. Before I left for the show today, I was watching an interview with a former Democratic, real major strategist, Donna Brazil. You know who she is. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about, of course, as they always do, Trump's remarks about Baltimore and about Cummings and what was her plea? What was her position? Oh, well, you can't blame him. We have to, as a people, address this issue. It's our obligation. The United States, like we have to take, according to them, we have to give everybody free everything except the working guy has to pay for it. Now we have to take care of Baltimore. It's the entire United States' problem as a people that Baltimore screwed up. It's our fault. It's everybody else's fault. Anybody who doesn't live in a rat-infested area, it's our fault.
Well, Fall River should qualify for some of that money then.
Exactly. But see, that's the irony of it, to me. The irony of is if anything even moderately good gets in the news in Baltimore, Cummings and every other politician in the planet Earth that's around Baltimore will be on the news media taking credit for it. But when they identify, and they had statistics like poverty level in the 20s, like Fall River, murders, crime. God, it sounds a little like a larger version of Fall River, doesn't it? But all these indicators of how you know, the problems they have in the city of Baltimore. And then when the representative from the federal government, their congressman, is called on, why haven't you made Baltimore a bigger priority? Why haven't you made your district? Where have you been and he's been in there a very, very long time. But no, it's not his fault anymore. It's everybody else's fault. And that is the problem with the political process. Politicians don't give out pay raises. You got to squeeze a penny from them. They give all their friends big, huge raises. And then when somebody dies in a line of duty, they're at the head of the parade, even if they wouldn't give people the equipment they needed or the money they wanted to get a fair and equitable wage. But when it comes time to take the credit, they're always there. But when it's the blame, it's our fault. It's America's fault. We're supposed to take care of everybody from every country on the planet now because it's our obligation. And guess what? We won't have a middle class anymore. We won't have a country. It'll be a disaster. This is like the Roman Empire. And that's what disturbs me. When I see stuff like this, and she's on national television spewing this garbage, and people don't listen, and they don't objectively evaluate what she's saying. How is it my fault that a congressman's district is a disaster like Fall River is? And we can't take the blame, CJ, because you and I are complaining all the time about Fall River. So it's not just walking the walk. We talk the talk, and we talk it here 3 times a week because we never not highlight the problems in Fall River. We also acknowledge the very little good that's done. But, I mean, this whole thing is just it's a symptom of why this country is deteriorating. Because it's all about partisan politics. It's all about controlling the government so they can get their hand in that pie, and the hell with the working man. Nobody gives a damn about the working man. And then the next thing I saw that made me nauseous, I had to grab the bottle of Tums, was Talib was on.
Oh.
And I guess one of the, and it wasn't even like a Fox network. I guess it was on one of the other networks. I know it was on one of the other. I forgot which one it was. And actually the commentator said, well, your state and your district's doing pretty well economically. And you know what she said? It's not because of Donald Trump. It's because the people are demanding it. Well, I'll tell you what. If you're right, Congresswoman, I demand Fall River does better. Is that going to make it happen?
According to her, it will.
Well, I guess so, according to her. So everybody in Fall River, get up and walk down to the city council and demand that Fall River's better. Our economy is going to be, we want our economy to be better. Everybody march down there at Citizens Input. Let's have about 4,000 people at Citizens Input saying, I want our economy to be better, because then it'll happen, because that's what Congresswoman Talib said.
At 3 minutes a person, they'll never have a city council meeting.
That's right. We'll be there till next year, till after the election. But, I mean, the absolute lunacy of what some of these people who are making $175,000 to be your representative, and you will reelect these people. I mean, she should be summarily thrown out of office. And the other one about cow farts. I mean, you're sending them to Congress to make your life better, not to make everybody else on the planet's life better and your life miserable. So, I don't know, but that's just my opinion. So, as we were talking about lunacy and how government doesn't do anything except take more money from you and spend money, let's get to this little tidbit. Fall River schools could get a boost in state budget. Well, they're going to get more money.
Yeah, on Friday, they announced how much more money was being given to school systems. And it looks like, you know, Fall River could be getting a couple of $1 million more.
Yeah.
So that should mean we should have a couple of more deans of students and...
Yeah, there you go. That's exactly right, CJ, because we don't learn from anything. It's not like this happened in Zimbabwe. 15 miles down the road in Providence, they have a school system that is one of the worst in the United States. And they got a lot of high-paid people and a lot of these administrative positions and have had for decades, and that school system has deteriorated into total chaos. So what is the moral of that story, people? Money does not cure the educational problems.
That's right.
And Fall River has continued to increase their school budget every year, create more administrative positions, as you said, like Dean of Students, COO, CFO, BFI, DUI, or whatever you want to call it, and they're all making big money. And our educational system is not as good as it was when we had none of these jobs. Why you need a Dean of Students for middle school is beyond me, but hey, that's just my opinion. But again, here's the government answer to everything. Take your money. Take the money out of your wallet and throw money at it. Hire more political hacks for these jobs. Throw more money at the problem, and then when a school disintegrates, what's Providence going to do now? Oh, turn it over to the state.
And that's what they did.
Let's go. Forget it. Everybody got their job, everybody got their pensions, everybody got their pay raises, and nobody did their job, and the buildings are falling apart, just like in Fall River.
And
is anybody held accountable for not doing their job for the last decade and a half? No. So what did they do now? Oh, well, yeah, you're right. This is a mess. Let's turn it over to the state because we don't have the resources to do the job.
I'll wash my hands of it, exactly.
Yeah.
And, that's what happens here in Fall River. In Providence, you got fifth graders that can't read. They can't do basic math. And the parents are talking about it, that their kids fifth graders can't do basic math and can't read. But how are they in fifth grade? How did they get through kindergarten, first grade, second grade, and third grade, and fourth grade if in fifth grade they can't do basic math and they can't read? Who passed them? The system passed them.
Well, there you go again, asking a logical question, expecting the system to perform the service that it was created for. There you go again. You know, you're talking crazy.
I know.
CJ, you're talking crazy.
I know, I should have my head examined.
You want a publicly funded entity to operate like a real business. You know, a public education system to act like an educational system rather than a money pit and a trough for politically connected people to get jobs. Dean of students. Can you see the resume of somebody? What were you? The dean of students. Where? Yale? Harvard? MIT?
Former public schools.
No. Morton Middle School.
Exactly.
I was the dean of students at Morton Middle School. It's like, what? I mean, if it wasn't so tragic, because education is probably the single most important thing a child can get in order to facilitate a successful future as an adult.
Well, I can tell you as an educator, when I was teaching it at the college level, when they would come in, we would have to give them remedial courses on reading, basic English, basic math. And BCC here does the same thing. Almost every student that comes through the door here has got to take a remedial math course, a remedial English course, a reading course, because they can't do it. This is what our school systems are producing. Illiterates.
And what's the government response to this? Let's throw more money in and give them free education. They're not prepared to be educated when they get to college.
Right.
As you said, they need remedial studies. So, as you said, even at that third, fourth, and fifth grade level, that's where it started, the foundation of the education. So it wasn't there to begin with. It's like building a house with no foundation. It's going to collapse. Now they're getting to college and they need to learn basic mathematics when they're expected to take college level, you know, and basic grammar. They can't write a term paper. They can't do anything. So, but is there any accountability for lack of performance on the entire system that got them to a college level education? And they're unprepared. If you go to Europe, that doesn't happen. If you go to the Far East, that doesn't happen. I know in Europe, in Germany, they give them a test when they're in grammar school,
which determines where you're going to go.
And if you don't test that you got college material preparation, they give you a trade so you can get a job and work. That's what they do. And if you don't get to go to college if you're not prepared for college in Germany. As a matter of fact, I know some teachers that were teaching German exchange students, and they had that conversation in their classroom because one of the German students got up and said something about, I don't know, they were talking about college, and one of the American students said, well, because I think she made the comment that in Germany they can only go to college if they test, and the other people are required to go to a trade school. You can't just go to college over there if you want. And basically, if you want a public education, I'm sure if you want to pay for it, you can go. You can do anything you want. But most people over there, not like Americans, they can't afford it. We don't have all the movie actors. Maybe they can do it. But the reality is, then the American student got all upset. What do you mean? It's my right to go to college. And the German student said, why would you want to go to college if you can't get through college? Or you're not going to. But they didn't have an answer to that question. But I do. That movie actress's daughter gave the answer I don't really want to go to college, but I want to go to the games and party.
And party, exactly.
And party. That's what I want to do.
And-
This is going to be an experience for me, a life experience. My mommy's going to pay somebody to take my SATs. She's going to bribe the college. I'm going to go to college and take up a dorm room, or not a dorm room. She'll probably live in an off-campus penthouse. But I'm going to take up space for X amount of years, and I may or may not get a degree, depending on how much money my mother wants and father want to spend on bribing the professors. But then I'll get out, and I'll be totally ahead too, just like I was when I got there.
But when we look at the, vocational schools, trade schools, have always been classified as for the dummies. For the dummies. Well, let me tell you something. Those dummies are making more money per year than a surgeon is. They're making more money than doctors. They're making more money than politicians. But they're dummies.
Yeah, well, that's as you said, that's one of the fallacies that this country has perpetuated, because they want everybody, as many people to go to college so they can keep all these places open and people can get all their big paychecks. But the reality is that if you get a degree in and not that there's anything wrong with the degree, but you got to realize it's your opportunities for employment afterwards. But if you decide to go to college and major in medieval English literature, I mean, the reality is that you're not going to have a lot of job opportunities except teaching medieval English literature or driving a cab and discussing it with one of your customers.
We don't drive cabs anymore. We now drive Uber.
Or whatever.
Or Lyft.
And discussing it, or Lyfts. But the reality is that you're not going to have a big job. Yeah, I mean, it's known that if you get a bachelor's degree in psychology, you're not going to get much money. You can't work many places. You need a master's or a PhD in psychology to get any even. And you look at some of these job postings, they're making $35,000, $40,000 a year with a bachelor's degree for certain jobs coming out of college, and a plumber is making 10 times that much.
Right.
And an electrician, they're making 5 times, 10 times as much with a viable trade. So that's another myth.
With a vocational education, a vocational high school education.
And that's a myth perpetuated by a lot of agencies because they don't want people to realize it. And that's what makes Germany's system so effective. People realize that you can make good money as a tradesman. I said that I ran into a guy that was a machinist that was trained through the German system, and he was in the United States opening up a plant. So,
well, it's like I said, it's very interesting because our vocational school here in Fall River is too small. It's overpacked with students, and they have waiting lists for kids to get into that school. Waiting lists. So are all these kids on the waiting list dummies? I don't think so. I don't think so.
no. And it because people are beginning to realize you can make some great money. And there's always work for them. But hey, this again, we have the propaganda machine, and they brainwash people, and it's always after the fact, and we've got these people on television telling people, and there's no blame. It's always you fix it, give me money, and it's your fault, and we all have to fix the problem, even though they're responsible.
Give me money, I'll spend it.
That's right. Remember, give me the Sahara Desert, I'll run out of sand in 5 years. Well, we have plans for the South Coast Rail Fall River Station under review.
It's actually in Fall River. It's actually in the City Hall. The city planner's looking at those plans now.
Wow, yeah.
After 3 decades, we've got a plan for a station.
Yep. And we will be the final stop, or what? Yeah. On that leg. And
Governor Baker already funded it. He already funded it with bonds.
You mean the Governor Baker that won't produce the people from the RMV?
Yeah, that one.
That were responsible for the murder of 7 people, in New Hampshire.
And God knows how many others.
Because maybe they'll find out they were some of his appointees. Well, again, have a good one, everybody. We'll see you on Hump Day.
And it's going to be hot the next 2 days, so keep yourself hydrated and stay in the air conditioning if you can.
And remember, if you see a guy on a scooter, it's CJ.
It's me. Have a great day and stay angry.